Today, we are going behind the scenes and we're going to unlock some secrets behind the scenes of the tour inside Epcot,
I actually liked this tour way more than I thought I was going to.
AKA low expectations is always the way to go. And this one here, it's a little easier to say that because it's not quite expensive.
Not at all. It's not expensive, and it's very time efficient. If you are in Epcot and you're going to do a tour and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I really want to do a tour, but I don't necessarily want to spend my full day inside of a tour. I want to see Epcot too. This is a perfect tour for you if you're one of those people.
So what is behind the scenes tour, and how many times are we going to say behind the scenes instead?
Hopefully not a lot.
I think that was a very smart of Disney to change the name to Behind the Scenes, though. It's a cute ploy to, everybody wants to go behind the scenes in Disney, especially in Epcot, and this is really the chance to do so. So,
can I just say one thing, that one of the best things about doing this tour was being able to be backstage.
Just hearing that word, you're going backstage, was pretty awesome. What's funny is that when you do initially go backstage, they have what's called the go away green colors on the wall, painted on the wall. So you kind of know if you got lost and went behind there by accident, you kind of know you don't want to be there.
I mean, there wasn't as much going on behind the scenes as I thought there was going to be. So if you did kind of get back there accidentally on purpose, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of people back there to be like, what are you doing back here?
Yeah, it was
just kind of us alone.
It's pretty low key for sure. Well, Behind the Scenes tour is really a unique and educational, bear with me though, educational portion. You're really having fun doing it. It's offered inside Epcot and Walt Disney World, and it takes you behind the scenes as sort of a semi-personal, I call it semi-personal because there's usually a group and it sells out usually. So it's but not a very large group. Backstage walking tour of the beloved Living with the Land attraction. And it really offers just an exclusive peek into the inner workings of one of the coolest ways to grow plants, I think, in the world.
It's the coolest thing. Living with the Land, you think to yourself when you see Living with the Land, oh, it's a boat ride through a greenhouse. But it's more than that. And it's so cool to see how they grow these vegetables and plants inside of the greenhouse and the different tactics that they use. And to be able to go up close and kind of hands-on, semi-hands-on behind the scenes and be able to do that with the tour guide was pretty fun.
So it's a 1 hour walking tour. And I know Bruce mentioned before that really matters because when you are paying to go into Epcot, you don't want to spend too much time of your park day doing something that you may or may not know you like. Guaranteed you're going to like it, I think, but still an hour I feel like you can commit to. And the price does match that. So it's a 1 hour walking tour. You go a tour of the fish farm, which you get to see on Living with the Land attraction. You get to go through the 4 greenhouses that make up the Land Pavilion. And during the tour, you go and you see the tilapia and catfish, the freshwater shrimp that make up Epcot's fish farm, gigantic fruits and veggies, and these just like unusual crops that you see around the world, which I think is so interesting.
It was also fun to see, like, before you get going into the greenhouse, she brings you, or your tour guide, he or she brings you into this room and kind of explains how they grow the vegetables and plants, right? And then the fun part for me was like they have these 2 different insects, and like they have one insect that kills the plants, so they have to bring in another insect that kills the insects that kills the plants.
Quick note, if your child or if you as an adult don't love insects, the very beginning portion, it's not creepy at all, but they do show you these little tiny flies that they that they can put on plants or that they don't want on the plant. So that's the start of the tour, but it's not very long, and it's nothing like it's tough to be a bug or anything
Not
like
at
that.
all, and it's nothing scary at all. It almost looked like the fruit flies that you see if you leave bananas out too long or tomatoes. You get these fruit flies on your counter. It kind of seemed like those.
Yeah.
So even Disney has fruit fly problem.
Who would have known?
Not me.
All right. So here's what to expect on the guided tour. So you get, like I mentioned, a glimpse into the greenhouse. So the tour begins with a visit to the greenhouse of the attraction, which is typically closed to the public. And I think that part alone makes you want to go. I mean, there is that infamous situation where, unfortunately, a guest at Disney hopped off their Living with the Land boat ride and tried to grabbed a cucumber. Don't do that.
No,
don't do that. So this is your chance, though, to go back there. It's definitely VIP feeling when you're back there because it is always, at least to me as a kid growing up, like going through the attraction itself, living with the land, you do want to get closer to the crops.
I also like that it's kind of chill. The tour guide's there, but they're not super strict on like, all right, everybody stay within 2 feet of me.
Yes.
You can't look at anything. Don't touch anything. Like they did have areas that are locked off, but it was kind of like, you know what? You can go at your own pace. If you're a little bit of a slow walker or a fast walker, or you want to stay back and take some videos and pictures while everybody else is kind of getting to the next thing. It was very relaxed. And I like that feeling of being able to kind of go at your own pace and not being rushed, and being able to take videos that you can go back and watch later, because yes, you want to be in the moment, but you also want to be able to show your kids or your family members what you did while you were there. And it wasn't any rush to be right with the group.
I mean, you just want to show off a little.
Of course.
Like, look what I got to do.
I went backstage at Disney. Like there's boats going by and we're waving to them, and
that was fun.
we're over here behind. You got to keep going on your boat, and we're stopped right here hanging out.
And I do appreciate the fact that you can trail behind it somewhat, and it's not discouraged at all. I mean, I am one of those low walkers. You guys know I like to really take my time to look at things, because sometimes during a tour, things happen so fast and quickly. I almost feel like it was a blur at the end. Like I don't know what exactly I experienced. So here, I feel like we had the most exceptional tour guide that really made us feel relaxed throughout the whole time. So you go through the greenhouse, you get to see the variety of plants and crops. They do use cutting edge farming techniques. So you'll see up close one of my favorite were the ice cream banana trees. But what's really cool are the Mickey-shaped pumpkins if you're going during the fall. And then they have Mickey-shaped cucumbers that they use, which is, I didn't even know until this tour that you can grow vegetables in like a shape. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I thought they cut them that way. I didn't realize they actually grew them that way.
So they have these molds where the vegetable grows into the mold, and they can be shaped into a certain thing because they expand into the mold. The other thing that I liked about this tour was that they give you the information about how they grow in the soil, the soil percentages that they use in order to grow the certain vegetables, which if you are a gardener or you're someone who likes to garden, this is great for you, because there was somebody there that you could tell was a seasoned gardener, and they were asking, not me either. They had a green thumb. You could tell they had a green thumb, and they were asking very sophisticated gardening questions, and our tour guide had the answers for all of them.
Just on the fly, like really knew her stuff, and it was amazing to see. So also what you'll be able to see on the tour is really sustainability in action. And I know that's a really big thing right now, and it's really inspiring. It's one of the most inspiring things of Behind the Seeds tour. It's really emphasizes on sustainability. You'll learn about some cool techniques that they do to grow food, to conserve water. You do hear that on the Living with the Land attraction, but this is really up close. You see how they reduce waste, and they really promote environmentally friendly practices. And to me, it just seems like it give you like a light bulb of, wow, there are things that I can do that can really help.
The other thing that was like, there's a lot of weird things going on Earth, like those bugs that were eating the plants, and then the bugs that were eating the bugs that eat the plants. It's like, wow, the Earth is a crazy place.
It's a lot of weird things, like microscopic type bugs that you would never know that are beneficial or not to certain plants, but they're all there for a specific reason.
Yeah, like you take for granted. Say you go to the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot, and you eat at the Greek booth, and it's food and wine going on. You take for granted, like the tomato, the cucumber, the feta cheese. You take it all for granted, like it just is appeared there. But the work it takes to get to that point, for that vegetable to get to that booth, is amazing. And it teaches you to understand that a little bit more and appreciate how much work actually goes into growing these vegetables.
So again, back to being somewhat hands-on. So it is not just a tour that you walk around and you just view, which would have been fine, I think, to some degree. But I think what makes this tour more memorable is the fact that they actually give you things to hold in your hand. Something clicks with me. That's how I learn, by holding and viewing. I'm very visual. So being able to have that opportunity, I think, is really incredible that they do that for the guests. I think that it enhances your experience, and you make you feel like you are part of the story. So for example, we even fed some of the fish. I have a video of doing that, and it was pretty incredible just seeing the fish all gather into one spot. Kind of a frenzy at one point, but it was neat.
Those fish were trained to be ready for food.
They were ready. And it was a part of the tour that was fun. Everybody giggled. And then another part of it was getting to actually taste some of the vegetables. So we got a chance to eat a cucumber that was actually really delicious and something that is not locally grown in our area. So we were able to have something that was a little bit unique. And we didn't have to hop off a boat and get banned from Disney.
Right, true. I like that the tour guide was very forgiving.
That's true, too.
Because I knocked over a rake while we were in there touring the thing. Being clumsy me, knocked over something right in the middle of the tour. She's in there trying to give a description of what's going on. You hear me in the background, a bowl in a china shop.
I do. I think I was recording at that same moment, and I do want to share that. And being knowledgeable. I think that one of the things that I found really great was that the guide was really expert. She was passionate. She showed her knowledge, and I'm sure, obviously, we only had one guide that day, and there are other guides, but it seems like they're all the same and all great and have enthusiasm, which it's funny how you can be enthusiastic about something so simple, but yet it's really cool because there is so much science behind it, and science can be pretty fascinating. And I think that's what makes Epcot in general so cool.
That's the essence of Epcot, right? Is the science and the futuristic things and pushing the envelope and being enthusiastic about the earth. Like our tour guide that we had was very enthusiastic, and it came across to us. Her being enthusiastic about what she was doing made me want to learn more about it.
So along the way, you'll again see that insect lab. You'll hear about some of the beneficial insects used in pest control, which is pretty interesting. And then there's so much educational opportunities. I think that it's a real great opportunity for young kids, older kids, kids at heart, adults that really want to just have an experience where they're learning something, but it's fun. And I agree that this is one of the tours that I think is so underrated.
Yeah, if you're going to skip school, too, go on this tour. Because if you're going to skip school, bring your teacher back a video of you taking this behind-the-scenes tour and say, listen, I know I went to Disney, but look, I was learning something. I was learning how to grow vegetables in a greenhouse.
We're not going to skip school, but I think that I see what you're saying. This is an educational experience. It's worth its weight in gold, and there's definitely something to be said. Maybe there could be some field trips.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying you should skip school, but if you do, this is a great reason to skip school.
One of the cool things that you can expect along the way, too, are the photo opportunities. So there's a lot to be said about being actually in the greenhouse. And you know what? It's not surprising, though, because when we're living with the land, I think I have a ton of video of us riding the attraction, being on the boat. So it's no surprise that once you're in there in the greenhouse and standing and you see up close all that lush greenery, it's so photogenic.
There was a giant tree. I remember pointing out to you, there was a giant tree in the distance, and you see a tree all the time. You're like, oh, that's a tree. I'm used to it. But when you realize that you're in a greenhouse looking at a giant tree, it's just felt like it was out of place a little bit.
You posted a photo recently on our Instagram, Unlocking the Magic Podcast on Instagram, and it is just so, in my opinion, it's one of the best photos I think I've ever taken. It just has this real great glow around it. And you can see the amount of people that was with us during the tour, so it's not that many. And it was just really just the backdrop itself. Like I wish I did, I think one, and our guide even asked to take pictures. Like she was pretty great about that, knowing that this is really your chance to get some really fantastic pictures. I wish we took a little bit more of us because there's so many great ones. So some of the unlocking history of the tour. So behind the scenes tour, it really has a rich history. It dates back to the opening of the park and the creation of the Living with the Land attraction. So a little bit of an overview. Epcot's opening was in 1982. Wow, just crazy to me to
think.
That
was 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, Epcot, for short, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. It opened its doors to the public on October 1st, 1982. And one of the original pavilions in the Future World section of Epcot was the Land Pavilion. And it was dedicated to exploring all various aspects of agriculture and the environment. So in 1982, with the opening, Living with the Land attraction opened. So as part of the Land Pavilion, the quote, Listen to the Land boat ride was one of the original attractions at Epcot. So it wasn't Living with the Land, it was Listen to the Land.
I wonder why they changed it to Living with the Land, because if you do go through Living with the Land, it is a lot of audio. Like there's a guided tour and it tells you to hear the thunderstorms and the rain and the wind. So there is a lot of listening that goes on, which I'm not used to.
There was actually your tour guide on the boat itself back then as well, talking about the land itself. And then it got replaced with the audio that you hear on the boat today. So it was a little bit of like the Great Movie Ride, if you remember that attraction.
Or Jungle Cruise.
Yes, a little bit of that. But it was replaced with what you hear, which is a bummer because I always love live interaction with cast members. I think that really makes a really wonderful Disney experience. But anyway, moving on to that, the ride was that gentle still boat ride that you know today, showcasing all that, the techniques and architectural techniques around the world. But along with that came tomorrow's Harvest Tour. So that was the original tour in Epcot in the Living with the Land attraction. So the guided walking tour, it was opened from October 1st and called Tomorrow's Harvest Tours till September 27th of 1993, which eventually became Greenhouse Tours, and that finally became the Behind the Scenes Tour.
I think Behind the Scenes tours, sometimes when they change the name of these tours or rides or attractions, you're like, oh, that's not a great name.
Yeah.
I think they nailed it with Behind the Scenes Tour.
I like it. I think
much
it's
better
good.
than everybody else. Tomorrow's Harvest Tour, that's hard to say.
Right.
Or, the other Greenhouse Tours. Behind the Scenes sounds like Epcot.
I think the Behind the Scenes Tour, maybe it gives it a little bit of an edge where, like you said, going behind the scenes is so cool, so that it's a play on words, and whereas maybe the Greenhouse Tour sounds a little lame. Let's be honest. It doesn't sound something you really want to take out of your day or your Epcot day to go do. So I think that was a really smart marketing idea to switch the name. It actually happened with the transformation in 1993. So the attraction was reimagined and renamed with Living with the Land. And it was updated, incorporating more educational portions of it. And I think that that's what was needed. But then the Behind the Scenes tour actually happened in 1998. So it's been that ever since. So it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. I would think if they were going to change the name, it would have already happened. But
no, when you nail the name, you don't change it once you nail it. Like the reason they changed it a couple times is because they didn't nail it the first time. They needed to make adjustments.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They needed hype it up a little bit more, right? But with classic UTM, I mean, chances are by next year they'll change the name on us.
That is true.
So
you're gonna try to go behind the scenes and they're like, that's not happening anymore. Well, I just listened to this podcast the other day that said, or this YouTube channel that said, check out the Behind the Scenes tour, but guess what? It's over.
It's over. Sorry about that. Well, going on a little bit further with our own experience, I would say we were really lucky to do this tour because it all sort of happened on a whim. We were not having the best of days in Epcot, and when we got down to Living with the Land attraction, the actual boat ride went down. So it was somewhat of a wait to figure out whether or not we wanted to wait around. Cast members had no idea when the boat ride would be back up. And around the corner, I saw the tour of Behind the Scenes. And I thought, I'm doing this. I'm walking up and I'm asking for info. And I just walked up to the Disney cast member behind the counter at Behind the Scenes. And I said, is there any availability for two for today? And she said, you know what? There actually is. And just so you know, that's very rare. So apparently this tour sells out weeks in advance.
Yeah, we talked to some friends that have done this tour and they're like, wow, you guys got on day of.
It doesn't happen.
Not only was it day of, it was the last tour of the day.
It was the very last tour. We were the very last guests that were able to sneak on, and it was just meant to be because we were really just going on Living with the Land. And if we had done that, if the ride actually was operating on as scheduled, we would have missed our chance anyways, because the tour starts promptly when it says it's going to.
In the not the pavilion, but the desk for Behind the Scenes is in an unusual place too. When you exit Living with the Land or enter, or actually exit Soaring as well, it's right there. It's like kind of tucked away in the corner behind the stairways to get up in the Land Pavilion. So you got to kind of search it out.
Yeah, it's definitely hidden, kind of a little hidden gem.
And it wasn't like we were walking that way. We were just kind of wandering around the first floor wondering ourselves, like, what are we going to do now? The land's down. Should we wait? Should we go upstairs? Should we go on Soarin'? And all of a sudden, you just spotted the desk and you walked over there. And you're like, you know what? I'm doing this.
I'm making our day better. I'm doing it right now. Originally, which I do kind of sort of feel a little bad about, one of our kids is really into gardening and has a great green thumb. So I always thought we would do the tour together. But, you know, when there's only 2 on the tour and it books up in advance, you kind of have to take advantage of the situation. So sorry.
And if you're someone like me who doesn't love crowds, is more of an introvert, it's not a big group. And it's not awkward at all. You have your headpiece on so you can kind of go at your own pace. And no matter how close or far you are from the tour guide with the headpiece, you can hear exactly what she's saying.
We had an awesome tour guide. I want to shout out to Rachel. She was extremely knowledgeable. And honestly, just so friendly. Like,
yeah, I was going to say friendliness and being happy. And you could tell maybe she's a good actor or actress.
Yeah, maybe.
But to me, she looked like she genuinely liked what she was doing. And that came across. And you can tell when someone likes what their job is. And it makes the whole experience that you're paying for and being there for a reason way better.
Here's a few things I think we learned without too many spoilers, because I think that's important, right?
Yeah.
That we don't give too much away. A couple of things I learned. As you're going through the greenhouse, you'll see the lab. Or if you're going through the Living with the Land attraction, you'll see that neat lab that I always look inside and I think, wow, it's a biotech lab. And I always dream about what it would be like to actually be a scientist back there. Well, it turns out there's only 2. There's only 2 scientists that actually work in that lab, and their names are Mark and Brad. So when next time you're on the boat ride, just know you're either going to see Mark or Brad working in the lab.
One of the things I always wondered is, why is it pink?
The lab is pink?
Yeah, the lab is pink.
Is it glowing? Like
it's pink because of the algae. The algae doesn't like that pink light. Same with the redness in the tank of the fish. So they don't like those colored lights in there. That's why it's those colors.
So what you're saying is we need that around our pool.
We definitely need that around my pool. If those fluorescent colored lights make things not grow, I need them everywhere.
So another thing we learned that was neat was that you often hear about how some of the restaurants are the Living with the Land attraction, the greenhouse in Living the Land Pavilion provides some of the vegetables in the restaurants. But I didn't know that some of the Disney chefs, they often experiment with different flavors and things that they want to try. So they can actually request to grow something to add to a dish. So another thing we should share is about planning. So advanced planning is highly recommended.
Unless you're us.
Unless you're us, but
you get lucky.
Don't be disappointed if it's not available, because usually what we were told, it's not. Tours are spread out throughout the day. The last tour beginning at 4:30. I really liked the afternoon tour because it was just enough where it kind of kick-started my energy. It was a really hot day at Epcot, and so by the time we got there, it was like 4, and then we checked in. It took away some of that, like, sometimes tiredness. It kind of rejuvenated me because the inside of the tour, the guided tour, it's indoors, obviously, so a little bit of a break. However, it can get hot in that greenhouse. So
it was a little muggy.
Dress accordingly. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. It's a greenhouse. Of course it's going to be hot.
But it wasn't overly hot.
No, but I would say think about that if you're booking a tour, maybe July or August. Like maybe do an afternoon tour or maybe early morning if you're sensitive to heat. But there's water in the tour and break, so it's not unbearable.
Yeah, there was a water jug there, not a jug, like a water fountain, and she offered water for anybody that needed it. So if you are someone that needs to sit down or have a drink of water, there's places and times for that during the tour.
So a couple of things to know before you go. Theme park admission is required. It's not included with the price of the tour. And as of now, the theme park reservations are also required. Just trying to remember that and hope going away soon, but that's just something to note if you're going anytime in the near future before that changes over. I would say price, I know we've discussed it and I don't want to say it too loud. It did increase recently over the years, but still thankfully it's not too bad. And I think especially if you're a couple or if you have just a few kids, it's not going to be break the bank. Definitely going to be on your feet for the tour, but obviously wear walking shoes. You can bring the electric scooter in there. I didn't see any in our tour, but on the Walt Disney World website, it highlights a little bit more information about that. You got to check in, make sure you do that. And I would say, so guests have to be 3 and up to participate. I don't know what the age range would be to suggest, though.
I would say if your kid is in their teens, they would probably be old enough to appreciate what's going on. If you're 6, 5, 6, they can go because it's not a long tour. It's only an hour long. But I don't know if they would appreciate it enough to do it. I may wait till they are a little bit older.
They may get a little bored at times. There's some moments where they're talking a lot about the herbs and spices that Disney does, which is great and fascinating. But
you have to be a little bit older to understand what's going on. Like it's not exciting or thrilling, but there is great information that's exciting to older people that was like, oh wow, okay, that's how that's done.
Right.
Whereas a younger kid may not understand that. But it's only an hour too, though. So if you want to do it and you want to take your kids, it's not like it's a 7-hour event.
That's true. Well,
which I like.
Yeah, I know you do. And for introverts, I would say it's a good experience. There's not a lot of people on the tour again. It's not
unless you knock over a rake.
Unless you do that. Bad. I mean, how does an introvert really put all eyes on themselves like always? It just doesn't make any sense.
That's awful.
But I think that's also important to know. You can ask as many questions as you want or none at all. I mean, it really is how much you want to learn or do during the tour. There's opportunity to eat your snack. You don't have to. There was some people that I don't think didn't want any, but overall, I think it's perfect for introverts and, of course, extroverts as well. And I think it's just a great experience. And I would say it's a 10. If we're scoring 10 out of 10, I would give this tour a 10.
I would say it's a solid 9.
Solid 9.
Solid 9. That's coming from me, and I'm pretty tough to score. So I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would suggest you do it. Go check it out in the Land Pavilion. We'll put all the links in our website, or if you're watching this on YouTube below, for you to go check it out and see what the schedule is to get you on that tour. It's a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot.
All right, that's going to do it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. We'll see you next time.